Good morning, everyone. All right, we are starting chapter 7. So if you're at home, you need to either print this on paper and then watch my video and take notes, or you can split your screen and take notes while I talk you through the first page. So lesson 1 is clearly about angles. We have two different types of angles we're going to talk about, adjacent and vertical. So two angles are adjacent. Angles. I clearly need an Apple pen to write neater. When they share a common side and have the same vertex. All right, so that's the vertex is the point where the two lines meet. So I'm going to highlight for a second so you can see what adjacent means. So if I look over here at angle 1 and I look at angle 2, those two angles are adjacent because they are sharing this side and they both meet right here at that vertex. So I can say angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. Now we could choose angle 2 and angle 3 as being adjacent as well, because they share this side and they meet at this point right here. So I could say angle 2, are not adjacent, Miss Jardine. Read directions. Okay, what angles are not adjacent? So we need to find two angles that do not share a side. So I could choose angle 1 and angle 3. Angle 1 and angle 3 are not adjacent. There we go. Two angles are what? When they are opposite angles formed by the intersection of two lines. Those are called vertical angles. When they are opposite angles formed by the intersection of two lines, vertical angles are congruent. So the word congruent in math means that those two angles are going to have the same measure when you use a protractor. So we're looking for two angles that are opposite each other. So I'm going to start with angle 1. The angle opposite that would be angle 3. So angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles. And then I could choose angle 4 and angle 2. Those are also opposite each other. Use the figure shown. Name a pair of adjacent angles. So a pair would just be two angles that share a side and a vertex. So I'm just going to pick any random angle. I'm going to pick this one down here. When you name an angle, you always need to use the vertex, the point where those two lines meet in the middle of your name. So this could be called either angle EBD or DBE. Since B is the vertex, B goes in the middle of that angle name. So I'm looking for an angle that is adjacent to that, that's sharing a side. So I could say angle FBE or EBF. So name a pair of adjacent angles. So I'm going to say angle DBE and angle EBF. Those two are touching each other and they share a vertex. Now name a pair of vertical angles. So vertical is opposite each other. Has to be exactly opposite each other. So if I look at angle ABF, I can see that that is opposite angle CBD. So there's your sign for angle ABF. The vertex goes in the middle of the name. and angle CBD are vertical angles because they're opposite each other. All right, tell whether the angles are adjacent or vertical. So there's my first task, adjacent or vertical. Then write an equation to find the value of x. Solve for x, and then tell the angle measurement if applicable. Okay, so adjacent means they're touching, vertical means they're opposite. So number one, I'm looking at this angle and this angle. Those are vertical angles because they're opposite each other, and vertical angles are congruent. So if the first angle is 70 degrees, the angle opposite has to also measure 70 degrees. So that one we did not have to write an equation because that is simple mental math. Now, if I look at this angle and this angle, those two angles share a side. So those two angles are called adjacent. Now this one I am going to have to write an equation to solve for x. Now notice the little square down here tells us that this is a 90-degree angle. This is a right angle. So I know the two angles together have to total 90 degrees. So my equation is going to say the first angle of 31 degrees plus the second angle of x plus 4 degrees. Those two angles together have to total 90 degrees. So I'm going to draw my mirror. I'm going to combine like terms. 31 plus 4 is 35. So x plus 35 equals 90. Show me your inverse operation. So we're going to subtract 35 from both sides. So x equals 55. So x equals 55 degrees. Make sure you use your degree sign in your final answer. Number 3. So I'm looking here and here. Those are adjacent because they share a side and a vertex. Now these two angles together also form a straight line. So we can clearly see right here, that's going to be 180 degrees. So if those two angles are 180 degrees, I'm going to say the first angle of 85 plus the second angle of x has to be 180 degrees total. You're going to show me the inverse operation and subtract 85 from both sides. So x equals 95. So x equals 95 degrees. All right. So here we are looking at this angle and this angle. Those two angles are opposite each other, so those are vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are congruent, and I can clearly see from this square in the corner that that is a right angle. So the other angle has to total, x has to total 90 degrees. So here I'm looking at this angle and this angle. Since those two angles share a side and a vertex, those are adjacent. So I'm going to say 69 plus 2x minus 1 equals a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to combine like terms. 69 minus 1 is 68. So 2x plus 68 equals 90. Subtract 68 from both sides. So 2x equals 22. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 11. So x equals 11 degrees. All right, so now you're going to draw a pair of vertical angles with a measure of 75 degrees. Use a protractor to draw a 75-degree angle. So since you clearly would need paper and pencil to do this, we're going to skip that. I'm going to kind of eyeball it for you, which you really should never do, but I want to give you an idea of how you would do that. If I'm going to draw a pair of vertical angles with a measure of 75 degrees, I could draw one angle and then 75 degrees. So I'm going to kind of eyeball it. This would be about 90 degrees. So 75 would be a little bit less than that. So I'm going to erase those. So this would be about 75 degrees, and this would also be about 75 degrees. Use a straight edge to extend the sides to form two intersecting lines, which we already have two intersecting lines. All right, that is it for today's lesson.